Welcome to tonight's edition of Columbia Links, produced by the summer 2014 session. I'm Rafael Yañez.
And I'm Cecelia Morrow. We begin tonight's webcast with a report on the Petcoke plant on Chicago's southeast side. Some groups are saying it is an environmental hazard to its residents.
Reporter Ania Gregory is in the studio with more. Ania?
Thank you, Rafael and Cecelia. Petcoke is the dangerous byproduct of oil refineries. The Southeast Environmental Task Force is one of few groups battling the Koch brothers' Petcoke plant in the southeast side of Chicago. There are amounts of Petcoke affecting residents in this area.
First of all, they're saying that we can't prove that it's coming, that pollution is coming from their place. They're saying it could be coming from any of these different factories around here and different terminals around here.
Right.
But the EPA now has required putting monitors. There's a system of monitors around the property, and in April and in May both they've cited them for fugitive dust emissions. So they have proven, or they have the proof that it's coming from there, and they've been cited with violations. So they're currently being sued by the Illinois Attorney General and the U.S. EPA. And by our organization. We have a suit against them as well.
Thank you, Ania. Blackstone Bikes is a youth education program based in the Woodlawn neighborhood, but this program is also dedicated to empowering youth. Reporter Christian Thorsberg has more.
Chicago youth are flocking to Blackstone Bike Company during after-school hours, where hard work and the rewards of making positive decisions come in the form of a bicycle.
I was a kid at Blackstone 10 years ago. You know. I was a kid. I was just same age as you, running around here doing crazy stuff, and it took me a while to notice it, but eventually I started to see all the habits that I did have. So I haven't always been the best kid in the world. I was a little bad kid, and now I grew up. Mostly because of Blackstone molding me, my parents and my family keeping on me to stay positive, and it definitely changed me from a negative person to a very positive person.
As the bike shop continues to grow, Jamel Triggs and the rest of the Blackstone family will be there to better the lives of Chicago youth. For more on this story, go to columbialinks.org. Back to you, Rafael and Cecelia.
New research shows that learning to play a musical instrument or singing can lead to improved reading and foreign language skills. But some schools don't have the budget for music education programs. Reporter Kirsten Lofton spoke with several young people on the importance of music education.
In fact, in a book called The Role of Fine and Performing Arts in High School Dropout Prevention, studies show that some high school students decided not to drop out of high school in order to participate in the arts.
Music is my driving force, and without it I'd be lost. For some of us, music is more than just an extracurricular. It's what gets us up in the morning. Music is the best of me and the better part of my world.
Chicago musician Tommy Scott believes that music can help keep students off the streets and prevent them from joining gangs. For more information on this story, go to columbialinks.org. I'm Kirsten Lofton with Columbia Links. Back to you, Cecelia and Rafael.
And now, a special report on the growing problem of human trafficking. Recent stats from the Department of Justice estimate that some 300,000 children are at risk of being prostituted in the United States every year.
The Columbia Links I-Team has been working on this topic for several weeks, and I-Team reporter Solomon Davis is here to share some highlights of their investigation. Solomon, is this happening in Chicago?
Yes, human trafficking does happen in Chicago. It's commonly thought by people that human trafficking is something that happens in a third world country or across an ocean. And what we do find is that mostly it does happen just here in Chicago, like on your street.
And so is this affecting mainly women and younger girls?
All genders are involved. It's commonly thought that just girls and women are involved in human trafficking, but it can be all genders.
And what is the typical age for someone to become involved with trafficking?
The typical age of entry for someone involved in human trafficking is 12 to 14.
And how much can a human trafficker make from this business?
Well, in terms of the numbers on how much a human trafficker can make, that's sort of a topic that hasn't really been covered due to the lack of information on human trafficking. But if you just look at the industry of human trafficking itself, the industry is somewhere in the billions.
And what is something that shocked you in your investigation?
Well, during our investigation, we had some hard times tracking down actual traffic victims, and we just were astounded by the types of misconceptions and the things that human trafficking victims went through, especially international victims, in which when they would come over from the country, their passports would be taken, and they'd sort of be under the control of the pimp, and they couldn't get out.
Thank you for your time, Solomon.
Now there's a push to chronicle some of the lives that came out of CHA housing. Reporter Jean-David Nationalis spoke with those in charge of the upcoming National Public Housing Museum. He joins us now with some highlights of his investigation. John, what did you learn?
The National Public Housing Museum, or NPHM, seeks to dispel stereotypes and stigmas about public housing in Chicago and all over America. There's a notion that nothing good ever comes out of public housing, when in reality, many successful people, including Jay-Z and members of Earth, Wind & Fire, have come from public housing.
The reason that we're dispelling those stereotypes and stigma is that we think there is a future for affordable housing and that there should be a public commitment, and we're looking at what that should look like.
It was not only black people that lived in public housing, it was also like Caucasian people that lived in public housing. Like, I was under the impression that it was African Americans that lived in public housing, because that's all I seen. But when I came here and they started talking to us about like the history, we found out that like Elvis lived in public housing, you know?
Yeah.
So like I found out a lot of like information, and I feel like this museum can do that for a lot of other people that don't really know a lot about public housing.
Thanks, John. And now for some highlights of what Columbia Links did this summer.
From DuSable Museum to Pilsen, reporters this summer explored many corners of Chicago's South Side. That does it for this edition of Columbia Links. You can find these stories and much more at columbialinks.org. I'm Cecelia Morrow.
And I'm Rafael Yañez. Thanks for joining us. Have a good day.